Yeah, hi. We are 93 years young, and I just wanted to talk about our journey. I'm trying to keep it very short. I have quite a few slides, so I think I will just be very brief. As a magazine media player, we have generally been storytellers, and we've been. I'm sorry, I was hoping to get the presentation on this. Would it happen? Yeah. In the last, we've actually been on the digital space for the last 22 years. I mean, believe it or not. So we just started off more by accident to serve our overseas customers who are actually pretty irate about not getting their copies on time. And 2005, when we decided that we had to shut shop because it was getting too expensive to maintain our website, that's when we actually went pay. And we've been pay ever since. Of course, we have content ahead in front of the paywall as well as behind the paywall. So we are what is otherwise called a freemium model. So the initial steps were all, pretty tentative, and, they were, the early days of digital. So we really didn't do too much, except that between 2005 and 2014, most of our digital revenues were subscription revenues. And probably we didn't know any better, but we never looked at advertising as a big source of income. And, in those days, DFP really didn't give us too much. Google wasn't giving us too much of money. Between 2014 and 19, we took a very important step, I think, that we transformed, we invested very heavily in transforming the editorial department from being a magazine player first or a print player first to a digital first, video first, mobile first kind of an adaptive. We got our journalists to start writing stories from all perspectives, even as they went for the story. So how you write it, how you promote it, how you, add the hashtags, and how do you present it for different mediums. This is something that we started to do from 2014. We spent a lot of money, and in fact, even as we speak, I am just 2 months away from inaugurating our open office, which should be housing our 300 plus staff, which includes editorial, marketing, tech, the sales team, everybody is sitting in one roof, the product team, all of them sitting under one roof, trying to actually make things happen. And at this point of time is when we started realizing that, the analytics was at the core of everything that we needed to do. About 3 years back, we invested in a DMP, and we've started, really trying to hyper-analyze the data that we've been able to get from there to improve the efficacy of the advertising that we served on our site, as well as it has given us a platform to go into the programmatic route side by side. More importantly, I think we began to understand the readers, and the DMP helped us understand what our readers were consuming outside our site. And once we were able to do that, we realized that there were a lot of content that we had within our site. For example, somebody who was consuming political content on my site was going outside and reading, consuming in Motor Car or, Motor India and all that, Auto India. So we have auto content on our site, but we actually never showed it to him at that point of time. So we were able to get our readers back in. I think that was one of the important things that we learned during that phase. I'm glad to say that, in the last 10 years, we've actually had a pretty good growth in the first 10 years. And then subsequently, in the last 5 years, we've been growing 35% year on year on a clip. And I'm hoping that this year also we should be able to maintain 35, if not grow more. But there is actually something behind this, right? The story is not so simple. If you see the page views, while we've had extraordinary page view growth till 2018, 2018-19, we switched our focus on to time on site, to retain more audiences for longer on our site, and to have greater engagement. And that, if you see in the bottom, if you see in the bottom, the red color, the red is actually direct advertising. The pink, what you see, is actually YouTube, and the blue, what you see, is subscription revenues. So where subscription was the core of our revenues till about 6 years back, and then it started getting supplemented by direct sales. And if you see the way direct sales has grown, we have actually been able to engage better with our audiences, and that has led to a better growth in our direct sales. And of course, the YouTube piece is completely, so I will break this up into three things. One is that you will see here the number of mobile sessions. So even though our users have been growing and the sessions have been growing, it's not necessarily the same with the page views. And if you see, the reason for that is the level of engagement that we've been able to get on our site, and that engagement has driven more advertising revenue to our site, because people are staying longer and advertisers are getting better click-through rates, right? And this is the YouTube piece. Till about 2015 or 16, we only had, so for the last 20 years, we've been producing for serials for Sun TV and other channels. And our productions we put online since 2011. And since 2016, we actually started creating non-fiction videos. That is everything to do with the content that we are producing in our magazines. We've also started making video equivalents of that. And if you see, today, I am, the video consumption, today we have about 200 million video views every month on our YouTube pages, of which about 25% is contributed by non-fiction, which actually is a big deal. We are kind of breaking even there as things stand, but the growth has been pretty tremendous. So I wanted to just present to you in a nutshell. The black line that you see is actually our NRI audiences. If you see of a share of our total audiences, NRI audiences used to be the max in the early years. But with the Geo effect, this is the time when actually Geo hit, 2016, right? There you will suddenly see that the Indian audiences have started growing and the NRI audiences started dwindling. Similarly, you will see that this line is the desktop growth, and this you will see is the mobile growth. So mobile started growing substantially, the Indian audiences started growing substantially, and that's when actually subscription took a hit, right? So right now subscription, we are having a completely different plan for the entire subscription scheme. We are moving into a product thought process, which I will be discussing about in a few slides. And all the while, even when the page views are down, you will see that as far as our ComScore clearly shows that our audiences are in place. So I think it's important. Today we spoke a lot about many other things here. I think it's important. The engagement levels that you have with your audiences are as important, if not more important, than actually the page views that we had. I think we saw that with LiveMint. Of course, they've done a bit of both. They've been able to enhance their audiences as well as increase their engagement. We need to learn a few things from them. So I guess these are basically, I think one of the things that haven't been spoken about today is native advertising. I think we have discovered that the CPMs and the CPCs and the CPAs, which drive everybody around the room crazy, and even with all due respect, programmatic basically is meant to keep the cost at the most optimum level for the buyer than for the seller, right? So we've been working with native advertising, and I would say, I don't have the numbers here, but I can clearly say of the revenues that we earn, native advertising revenues is a significant percentage, and it is growing year on year. So I would say that this year we would be, of our total digital revenues that we make, advertising revenues that we make, we should be making about 15% in native revenues. And native is a very clear collaboration between the editorial and the sales team. However, I want to be very, very clear, we are not, our news is not for sale. When it is native, it is clearly marked. It says sponsored content, and we do not believe in taking our audiences for a ride. We're very, very clear on native content, but native content, when it is done by the right people, and when we ensure that unless we are convinced about the content, we don't put it out there. If it's an advertiser who just gives us a content and ask us to run it, we don't do it. We do our own version of that content, but that is native content, and it's really been working very well for us. We have done that both on video as well as on text, and it's worked pretty well for us. And I guess the story from now is where it really gets interesting. We have our 93-year archives. So all the content that we put out there on our site is only from 2006 onwards. That is the time when, everything really, when we went pay. Before that, the content, we did not really put it out in the format that it ought to have been. So we are in the process of digitizing those entire archives. Archives are an amazing opportunity for us to create multiple products from. So that's something that we are really working on. We also believe that there is a way in which collectively many of those articles and many of those content are even contextually, they are aligned today. And we believe that an audio version of that podcast is something that we believe are a big step, going towards the future, as well as video, making videos of content using photographs and voiceovers and probably presentations. These are things that can really work as far as product is concerned. You've seen the piece where my subscriptions have been going down. So what's the interesting part of it is, while my subscriptions have been going down, my single issue purchases, which is something that we introduced 2 years back, because mobile is all about snackable content and it's all about here and now, single issue purchases have been going up. And very interestingly, those who have been buying single issues are 60% have a chance of converting into a subscription. So those who have been buying 5 or more single issues, there is a 60% chance of them converting into subscription. So we are really pushing single issues, and we are really trying to make a product out of that also, right? We are working towards personalization. Most of what we do is not necessarily done by ourselves, so it's always a make or buy decision. When we work with partners, we are trying to work with partners for personalization, as well as we've understood finally, we've come down from our high horse. Content is important, but marketing is everything. So unless the audience knows where to get what content from, and if that content is contextually aligned to his or her reading expectation or viewing expectation, then it makes sense. So how do you make sure that you put out the right kind of notification in the right medium to the right audience, and do that contextually, right? So that's something that we believe is important. Just wanted to briefly take you through this. This is our marketplace. This is a proof of concept that we have. In the last 9 months, this is completely a homegrown product. We've got now 57,000 users, in this period of time. And we've actually found people buying content. So today, nowhere did you hear about people buying content. It's always the advertiser needing to fund content. I would be so thrilled if more publishers started exploring this avenue. We are trying to create, you might have heard of this product called Blendle. that worked in, in Europe. We believe Apopo is probably a blendle for India, and we believe we want to reach out with more publishers. All the content that you have behind the paywall, we believe we'll be able to, if you can reach out to your readers, we believe we have the platform by which we will be able to get your users to consume content and pay for it. So if you see, for example, in the month of July, in the month of August, as we close, we've had 2.5 lakhs worth of content being consumed, of which, of course, much of it is free. But 20% of that, 50,000 rupees worth of content, has been consumed by less than 1,000 users in the month of August itself. So we believe that we have kind of a proof of concept here. And most of this growth has been coming organically. We have done some buying, we have been buying audiences also, but we found that organic growth of audiences is something by which we're able to retain our users much better. Some of the charts you'll see here is that in the month of, for example, just take the blue line, in the month of January, we onboarded customers. They bought in the month of January, Feb, March, April, May, June. So today we have 250 customers out of 1,000 customers who came in January. 25% of them have made at least one purchase during this past 6 months, and many of them have also made a second purchase, as you would see here, right? So actually, we have a monthly ARPU of 70 rupees per paying customer, which I think, for a print primary content is an amazing milestone by any stretch of imagination. So, I think all is not lost, and I believe that in print we still haven't yet found that, that inflection point. We believe in the next 6 months we are looking to have 10 times the number of users, and we are going to be able to actually break even from our operations at the end of 6 months. If it works, then we probably, would be looking at a product. We are looking at this not just to be a Tamil product. We are already onboarding, talking to English publishers. We are hoping to be able to onboard more and more publishers in multiple languages, and, we want to make it an alliance. So this talks about the the type of articles which have been read. I don't think I'm going in for that marketing pitch, but so basically native content and video content is the key. Indic languages storytelling, that's basically been our core strength, and voice is something that we are really focused on. Podcast. We believe that we are all about experiences, and so this is our key metric. We are in fact working on this with a European firm. We have actually been able to move people down the funnel. We have been able to create more and more audiences to engage more with us, and we are trying to have at least 3 or 4 experiments done every day, by which today a certain bucket of audiences, you give them a certain kind of a notification in a certain platform at a time. We are able to find out the response in real time, and we are able to tweak that, and we are actually having 5 failures every day. And we believe that if we have about 100 failures, we should have 1 or 2 successes. And those successes are something that we're going to build on as a product team. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Is it working? Thanks, Srini. Sorry, I had to, because my timer was going wonky, and I had to.
Sorry about that.
No, but Vikatan has always fascinated me, and I think I've been meeting you like for 15 years now. Every time I come to Chennai, Vikatan is one stop I always make. Tell me, in this thing, how much of the fact that you have this, is it a drawback to have a 93-year-old archive and history, and then you get into TV, and then you get into digital, and I know you grew with stops and gaps. So, were there any drawbacks, or to being established? You said that we moved in 2005, we said we have to be a digital first newsroom. 2014, sorry. And what was the big turning point? So, was there any, the lag of being a legacy? Because that's what all of us in mainstream struggle with. Yeah.
So, absolutely. I think it's basically about, with all due respect to, the editors in the room and Editor G. I think typically editors come from this perspective that, they know it, right? I know it, and that's why, the audience consumes it. And somehow in this 5 years, a lot has changed. But 5 years back, I think editors were not looking at digital as a medium of, growth. They were reluctant to look at digital, and a content which was going to be published only in the digital medium was literally frowned upon.
So that was an issue. How did you tackle it?
So very simple. We used to have a digital team and we had a print team. The digital team knew nothing about content, but they knew something about digital. The print team knew nothing about digital, but they were, the masters of content. So I simply said, I'm going to do away with the digital team, and I'm only going to keep those who understand content, and you guys have to figure it out, and you have to give digital content first. I mean, either you make it or break it.
So what was the big turning point? If I was to ask you for that one big insight which you want to share with this room, what is that one thing or two things, if you want to, which you think, is what led to the turning point, or which led to the traction that you've got in traffic and revenues?
So I think we've always been paranoid, and we always felt that, we are losing our relevance. Because online traffic at that point of time in 2014 wasn't really growing.
Yeah.
It was stagnating. When the world around us was growing, and when video was just making a kind of an entry, I found that my editors were unwilling or even refusing to think about that medium. So I actually called for a town hall, and I said, guys, whether you are with me or you are anywhere else, I need you to continue to be relevant. So I believe that where you have talent, I need to build your aspiration, and you need to be able to get things done. If you are not moving in that direction, then we are going to be lagging behind. And I said, I don't want an organization to win at your cost. So I would like you to be part of the journey.
It was doing that cultural shift from mainstreaming to becoming something that was medium agnostic to some sense, and being able to, I have lots of questions, but if anybody has a question in the audience, does anybody have a question? If not, then because I wanted to ask you about the software tools that you used, especially because that seems to be the winning thing between people who've been able to raise reader revenues versus advertiser revenues, and that, software, the tools, the technology behind understanding readers.
Yeah.
That seems to be a big differentiator.
So shall I ask?
No, I think you should answer that question
course.
first.
Fascinating presentation, and it's a very unique growth story. You made one point regarding your NRI audience versus the Indian audience, and you also mentioned about the geo effect. What I couldn't correlate was, while your Indian audience was growing, why did it had any causality or on the NRI readership? Where was that link? I mean, I couldn't get that.
No, that's the percentage. The NRI audiences used to be a substantial part of my readership and my subscription story, and they were desktop-based NRI audiences. But when you look at the overall growth story, since 2014, our audiences have grown at least 3 times. But the NRI audiences have kind of remained stagnant.
Sure.
So as a percentage, they have dipped. So since 2016, especially when the geo effect happened, mobile audiences went up, Indian audiences went up so substantially that NRI audiences and the desktop audiences generally have plummeted.
So you had more reasons to be happy about as far as domestic audience is concerned, right?
Happy, I'm not sure, but definitely there is a problem of plenty, no doubt about that, because subscriptions have not grown. So we have necessarily had to look at the whole thing as a product now, which we've been able to equip a product team. I've been able to get a product team together with much much difficulty because no techie wants to join you, no UI UX guy wants to join you, no data scientist wants to join you because they say, what can a magazine media company want to have with IT or with UI UX or
How do you
whatever.
solve this problem? I mean, this is a software, the tech part of it fascinates me. Because I spent some time with John Redding, the FT CEO, and he was telling me all my learning, all my investment goes in understanding video analytics.
Absolutely.
So how does it work for you?
So first of all, building the team, right? It's been 5 years in the making. I got my chief data scientist 3.5 years back.
You have a chief data
Yeah, I do have a chief data scientist. She's been with me now 3.5 years. She is on top of her game. She is the one who tells my content team what is the content that you should be putting out over the next 1 month because of the kind of consumption patterns that my DMP has been telling me about our audiences over the past. She's actually in a position to predict subscription numbers. She is in a position to tell what kind of content and what kind of notifications need to be sent through which medium in order to maximize the revenues, both and to optimize the revenue between advertising and subscriptions.
Superb, superb. So I think we are just towards the end. But this when you do productization of the archives, which you mentioned, which fascinated me, what kind of things do you do? Would you do listicles? I mean, what kind of productization?
I don't know, humor.
can you do?
Vikatan is known for humor, right? So today everything is memes, right? But the humor in the old sense, those wonderful sketches, those two-liners or even those, the silent jokes, these are things, I have not seen a humor app. And humor does not have a language, right? Humor is universal. I don't see
what
why.
Vikatan is about. Because
Yeah,
a lot
so
of people
Ananda
may not know
Vikatan
what
is basically, Ananda Vikatan is like a Birbal, right? So he basically understands everything that's going around in the world and he tries to communicate it in a witty fashion, in a way that people can understand very easily. That's what Vikatan as a name stands for. And Anand is, of course, the happy, the happy gesture, right?
Great. Thank you so much. I have so many questions, but we haven't gone through that. But thank you, Srini. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But your presentation was illuminating. So that really helped.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, audience.